The stars had teeth, and the Zoryth smiled with them. They lingered in the fractures between realities, patient as rot, their minds coiled around the dying embers of empires they'd once devoured. Time meant little to them. Mortals burned bright and brief, shackled to their fragile treaties and shorter memories. The Cerulean Accord was no different. Another guttering candle, another feast waiting to be spoiled. On the edge of the neutral zone, where the light of 3 suns warped into a sickly violet haze, a human diplomat boarded a Vinthari shuttle. His hands trembled as he adjusted his collar, unaware of the parasites nesting in his brainstem, their tendrils rewriting his loyalty neuron by neuron. The Zoryth observed through his eyes, savoring the tang of his fear. He would play his role perfectly, the spark, the scapegoat, the scream that would drown out reason. Far below, in a city of crystalline spires, Chancellor Kalon Averis stood at his podium, rehearsing vows of unity. His daughter Saren watched from the shadows, her telepathy dulled by years of caste-mandated restraint. She did not see the fissure in the Accord's foundation, the hairline crack the Zoryth had spent centuries widening. Not yet. Somewhere in the dark, a disgraced investigator drank himself numb in a portside bar, his failures etched into him like circuitry. Joran Vosk's name had once opened doors, now it drew spit and scorn. He would matter again soon, though he'd curse the stars for it. The Zoryth exhaled, their breath a tremor in the psychic tides. Mortals loved their dichotomies, peace or war, trust or betrayal, but the truth was simpler. Every civilization was a stone thrown into a pond. Ripples collided, ripples drowned, and the Zoryth, they were the hand that threw the stone. Chapter 1. The air in the Vinthari Grand Conclave tasted metallic, sharp with the tang of ionized particles humming beneath vaulted ceilings of iridescent crystal. Joran Vosk leaned against a pillar, his boots scuffing the floor's luminescent veins, their blue pulse a mockery of the ceremony's solemnity. He hated places like this, too clean, too certain. The hall thrummed with alien opulence, its walls shifting like liquid quartz, refracting light into prismatic specters that danced over the assembled dignitaries. Humans in stark black uniforms stood rigid beside Vinthari delegates, their crystalline skin glinting like shards of frozen starlight. Peace, they called it. Joran called it a farce. He adjusted the frayed cuff of his jacket, its once pristine fabric now dulled by years of neglect. The weight of his disgraced badge still hung in his pocket, a relic of the man he'd been before the Tarkin station incident, before his arrogance had let a bomb slip past his scanners, before 17 civilians had been reduced to ash. The memory clawed at him, sharp as the day it happened. He drowned it in the present, the murmur of alien tongues, the cloying scent of Vinthari incense, sweet like burnt honey. Across the hall, Saren Averis stood motionless, her posture a masterclass in caste discipline. Her father, Chancellor Kalon, was a silhouette of authority at the podium, his voice resonating through the chamber's psychic amplifiers, a low thrum that vibrated in Joran's molars. Saren's own crystalline features betrayed nothing, her eyes twin voids of obsidian, unblinking. Yet her fingers tightened imperceptibly around the ceremonial dagger at her hip, a weapon she'd never wielded, a symbol she'd never wanted. They're already here. The thought slithered into Joran's mind, oily and foreign. He stiffened, scanning the crowd. No one else reacted. When it came again, a whisper urgent and fractured, he realized it wasn't his own. Then the shot rang out. Chaos erupted in silence. Chancellor Kalon crumpled, a smoldering hole in his chest, his psychic amplifier screeching feedback. The human diplomat, a man Joran had seen laughing minutes earlier, stood frozen, the plasma pistol in his hand still smoking. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Then the diplomat's head exploded in a burst of crimson, felled by a Vinthari guard's retaliatory strike. Joran moved on instinct, shoving through panicked delegates. His mind raced. Assassination. War, blame. He'd seen the play before, but the diplomat's final words, the ones in his head, gnawed at him. A hand seized his arm, cold as glacial stone. Saren's gaze pinned him, her telepathic voice carving through the bedlam. You will help me, not a request. Her fingers dug into his flesh, her psychic presence a vice. He recoiled, but her mind pressed harder, unyielding. Images flashed, the diplomat's corpse, neural scars in his brain, a shadowy figure with too many eyes. Get out of my head, he snarled, wrenching free. Her expression didn't flicker. You are compromised. Your guilt makes you weak, he laughed, bitter, and your empathy makes you a delight. They were herded into a secure chamber beneath the conclave, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent fungi. Vinthari interrogators, circled like carrion birds, their psychic probes needling Joran's skull. He focused on the ceiling's fungal glow, counting spores to blunt the intrusion. Saren sat across from him, her hands folded, her mind a fortress. When Earth's envoy arrived, a pinched-faced admiral with dead eyes, Joran knew the verdict before it came. Work with her, the admiral said, nodding at Saren. Prove humanity's innocence, or die a traitor. The lab they were assigned reeked of antiseptic and decay. The diplomat's body lay dissected on a slab, his skull pried open to reveal gray matter threaded with luminous parasites. Saren hovered over him, her fingertips grazing his temples. Joran watched her, grudgingly fascinated. Her telepathy wasn't the mystical ritual he'd imagined. It was surgical precise. They rewrote him, she said finally, like a data stream. He leaned in, ignoring the reek of death. Who? A voice in the static. Old hungry. She met his gaze and for the first time, he saw a crack in her armor, a flicker of fear. It wants the accord broken. The ambush came in the transit hub, a maze of glowing trams and alien merchants. Joran spotted the Vinthari extremist too late, a youth with a bomb vest, eyes wild with zeal. He tackled Saren behind a cargo crate, as the blast tore through the crowd. Shrapnel bit into his back. She hissed, gripping his shoulder, her touch sending a jolt of psychic clarity through the pain. Left corridor. Now. They ran, ducking plasma fire. Joran's lungs burned, but her mind guided him, cold and relentless. In a derelict hangar, they turned, cornered. Saren's dagger glinted as she faced their pursuers. Joran's hand found a rusted pipe. No words passed between them. She moved like liquid shadow, her blade slicing throats with caste-trained efficiency. He fought dirty, all elbows and improvised strikes. When it was over, they stood panting amid corpses, the hangar's flickering lights painting them in strobes of bloody gold. You're better than I thought, he admitted, wiping grime from his face. And you are less insufferable, she replied, sheathing her dagger. A pause. Your sacrifice was unnecessary, he snorted. Don't flatter yourself. I just hate funerals. That night, in a safe house reeking of mildew, they dissected the extremist neural chip. Saren's telepathy peeled back layers of encryption, revealing a symbol, a spiral devouring its own tail. The mark of Zoryth, she whispered. A dead empire, forgotten by even the Vinthari. Joran stared at the hologram, its light etching shadows into Saren's face. Her mask had slipped, exhaustion and something softer lingering in her eyes. He wondered if she saw the same in him. War or genocide, he muttered. Those are options. She didn't answer. Outside, rain hissed against the roof, the storm swallowing the city whole. He poured 2 glasses of synthetic whiskey, sliding one to her. To terrible choices. Her fingers brushed his as she took the glass, a spark fleeting. She drank first. By dawn, they'd found the first thread, a derelict starship near the neutral zone, its hull etched with the same spiral. As the shuttle's engines whined to life, Joran watched Saren's reflection in the view screen. Her stillness no longer seemed cold, just lonely. He flexed his scarred hand, the one that had pulled her from the blast. Redemption, he thought, is a bastard of a drug. The stars blurred as they jumped to warp, leaving the Accord's corpse behind. Chapter 2. The derelict Zoryth ship loomed in the view screen, its hull a fossilized carcass, pocked by millennia of cosmic erosion. Jagged spires of blackened alloy spiraled into the void, like the ribs of some leviathan slain mid-lunge. Joran's fingers hovered over the shuttle's thruster controls, the silence between him and Saren thickening with every kilometer closed. Her breathing remained steady, measured. Vinthari discipline, no doubt, but he caught the minute tremor in her hands as she adjusted her neural interface. The ship's scanner spat static, its readouts corrupted by waveforms that shouldn't exist. Like staring into a mirror that shows your corpse, he thought. They docked with a shuddering clang, the airlock groaning as it fused to the Zoryth vessel's ossified frame. Saren ignited a lumen rod, its pallid light scraping against walls ribbed with organic-looking circuitry, veins of dormant biotech pulsing faintly under her boots. The air tasted of rust and ammonia, with an undertone of something sweetly fungal, rot laced with nectar. Joran's skin prickled. Stay close, Saren said, her voice a blade in the dark. Wasn't planning a stroll. They moved through arteries of dead machinery, their footfalls echoing into a vastness that swallowed sound. Joran's wrist scanner flickered, mapping the ship's labyrinthine sprawl. Every few meters, glyphs flared under Saren's light, the spiral sigil, always the spiral, carved into bulkheads and coiled around fossilized control panels. The Zoryth hadn't just built this ship, they'd grown it. He paused at a fracture in the wall, its edges glistening with sap-like residue. This wasn't a breach. Something burst out. Saren's telepathy brushed his mind. Featherlight. They worshipped entropy, made art of decay. He flinched, not from the intrusion but the intimacy of it. Her thoughts carried the chill of a tomb, yet beneath it hummed a current of dread. Shared. Now, they found the archive deep in the ship's necrotic heart, a chamber vaulted by arches of calcified resin. Bioluminescent spores drifted in the stagnant air, settling on Saren's crystalline skin like stardust. She pressed a palm to the central terminal, her telepathy syncing with the Zoryth tech. The walls awoke, holograms bloomed and scenes of a civilization unraveling. Zorythians, their forms shifting and insectile, knelt before altars of dissolving matter. A voice thrummed through the chamber, ancient and resonant, speaking in a language that bypassed ears to nest directly in the mind. We are the end that renews, the fracture that precedes unity. Joran's head throbbed. They wanted the Federation to collapse, to reset it. Saren's eyes narrowed. The accord was stability, an obstacle, a flicker in the holograms. Chancellor Kalon's face, his assassination replayed through the lens of Zoryth prophecy. The catalyst, the voice intoned. From his death, 1,000 wars. Joran's fist clenched. They're not just manipulating events, they're scripting them. The ambush came as they retreated. Zoryth drones, scuttling hybrids of metal and chitin, surged from fissures in the walls. Saren's dagger flashed, severing articulated legs, her telepathy overloading their rudimentary minds. Joran fired his stolen plasma pistol, the recoil numbing his wrist. A drone lunged, mandibles snapping. He jammed the pistol into its thorax, vaporizing it in a spray of viscera. Back to back, breath ragged, they carved a path to the shuttle. Saren's shoulder pressed against his, her coldness a counterpoint to the sweat soaking his shirt. For a heartbeat, he felt her exhaustion, the weight of her cast's expectations. Then she was moving again, ruthless, focused. The shuttle's engines screamed as they broke free, Zoryth tendrils lashing at the hull. Joran's hands steadied on the controls. Where now? Saren interfaced with the stolen data core, its corrupted files writhing. The neutral zone, a station called Calder's Reach. He input the coordinates. Sounds cozy. Mias Calder's Reach hung in the nebula's belly, a tumorous sprawl of grafted starships and scavenged tech. Docking clamps bit into their shuttle as they descended into a hangar reeking of engine grease and alien musk. A bazaar sprawled around them, merchants hawking weapons, organs and memories. A four-armed Thulian peeled a synth fruit, its juices sizzling where they struck the floor. Saren pulled her hood low, but not low enough. Her crystalline brow drew glances, hungry and wary. Joran navigated the crowd, his stride loose, eyes cataloging threats. Contact's name, Vethra. Saren's distaste was palpable. A facilitator. They found Vethra in a den choked with narcotic haze, her form obscured by a cloak of living shadow. Ah, she purred, her voice a chorus of whispers. The guilt-ridden and the caste-bound. How adorable. Joran's pistol found her temple. Let's skip the theatrics. Vethra laughed, the shadows parting to reveal a face that shifted with every blink. The Zoryth left a trail. Yes, a neurovirus in your precious Accord systems. But to expose it, her gaze slid to Saren. You'd need to sever the psychic networks. All of them. Saren went very still. The Vinthari caste system relied on those networks. A collective consciousness, the bedrock of their society. Genocide, Saren said softly. Or war, Vethra countered. Choose your extinction. They retreated to a rented berth, its walls vibrating with the station's pulse. Saren stood at the viewport, her reflection fractured by grime-streaked glass. Joran uncapped a flask of synth whiskey, the burn anchoring him. You knew, he said. She didn't turn. I suspected. He laughed bitterly. And you dragged me here to make it my fault. Finally she faced him, her mask crumbling. I dragged you here because you see solutions where I see only rules. Because you are flawed enough to find another way. The word hung between them. Flawed. He'd been called worse. He tossed her the flask. We burn their virus. Every last bite. She drank, her lips grazing where his had been. The networks would need to be shut down. Millions could die during the reset. So we cheat. He leaned in, the plan coiling in his mind. Trigger a localized purge. Frame it as a test. Your people love tests, right? A flicker of something like admiration in her obsidian eyes. You would gamble the accord on a lie. Better than your truth. Their hands brushed over the data core. A spark again. Always that spark. They infiltrated the station's core at dawn, slicing through antiquated security. Saren's telepathy blurred them past guards, her mind a scalpel in the dark. Joran jacked into the mainframe, uploading the virus killer, a fractal code that would snake through the Accord systems, devouring the Zoryth infection. Alarms blared. Vinthari warships blinked into the sector, summoned by the breach. Time? Saren demanded, her dagger wet with coolant fluid. Enough. Joran yanked the data spike free. Maybe. They fled through service ducts, the station shuddering around them. At the hangar, Vethra waited, her shadow cloak billowing. A parting gift, she hissed, tossing Joran a holochip. The Zoryth's next move. He pocketed it. Why help? Her smile cut. Chaos is so boring when scripted. Aboard the shuttle, Saren examined the chip. The hologram bloomed blueprints for a weaponized psionic amplifier, hidden in a temple on her homeworld. Joran set the course, his hands steady. They'll be waiting for us. Yes. She unclasped her cast sigil, setting it aside. A heresy, a vow. He watched her, this woman of ice and blade, and wondered when her solitude had become a mirror for his own. The stars blurred as they jumped to warp, the weight of what they'd set in motion settling over them. Redemption, he thought, wasn't a destination. It was the shadow you carried, the hand you chose to hold. In the dark, her fingers found his. Neither pulled away. Chapter 3. The Vinthari homeworld rose from the void like a shard of shattered emerald, its atmosphere streaked with auroras that bled into the black. Joran's hands tightened on the shuttle's controls, the scars along his knuckles pale, under the cockpit's sickly glow. Saren sat beside him, her cast sigil clutched in her palm, its edges biting into her skin. She had not spoken since they decrypted the holochip, since they learned what the Zoryth had planted in the heart of her people's most sacred space. A psionic amplifier, dormant for millennia, now pulsing with borrowed life. They'll be waiting for us. The thought hung between them, unspoken. The Temple of Eternal Resonance stood atop a basalt spire, its pinnacle lost in acid green clouds. Ancient beyond the Vinthari themselves, it had been carved by hands that worshipped entropy as a divine wind. Joran's boots sank into the ashen soil as they approached, the air thick with the ozone reek of impending storm. Saren walked ahead, her posture rigid, her dagger unsheathed. She had not worn her cast robes. You're sure about this? Joran asked, though he already knew the answer. She glanced back, her eyes reflecting the temple's jagged silhouette. Certainty is a privilege we lost. The temple doors loomed, etched with the spiral sigil. Joran's wrist scanner hissed, residual psionic energy, corrosive and alive. He palmed his plasma pistol, its grip slick with sweat. Redemption, he thought, is a knife you twist yourself. Inside, the walls breathed. Bioluminescent moss throbbed in time with their footsteps, and the ceiling dripped with stalactites of black glass. The air tasted of iron and rot, of something watching. Saren's telepathy brushed his mind, a warning. They've already begun. They found the amplifier in the sanctum, a monolith of fused bone and circuitry, its surface crawling with Zoryth parasites. The holograms from the derelict ship hadn't done it justice. It wasn't a machine. It was a presence, a maw hungering for the sky. Joran's scanner overloaded, sparks raining from its casing. How do we kill it? Saren stepped forward, her voice hollow. It's bonded to the psychic networks. To destroy it. He saw the truth in her face before she spoke. The amplifier was a node, a tumor threaded through every Vinthari mind. Saring it would fracture their collective consciousness. It would leave her people broken, vulnerable. Genocide or war. Vethra's taunt slithered back. The first Zoryth hybrid emerged from the shadows, its form a nightmare of titan and wet steel. Saren moved first, her dagger severing its spinal cord before it could scream. Joran fired into the dark, the plasma bolts illuminating more shapes, dozens, hundreds, scuttling from the temple's depths. They fought back to back, their breaths sinking. Joran's body screamed, every old wound reignited. Saren's telepathy lashed out, overloading synapses, but the horde kept coming. A blade grazed his ribs. He stumbled, and her hand seized his arm, hauling him upright. The amplifier, her mind urged. Now, they broke into a sprint, the hybrid's claws scoring the floor behind them. Joran slapped explosive charges on the monolith's base, his fingers trembling. Saren pressed her palm to the bone-white surface, her telepathy diving into its core. It's not just a weapon, she gasped. It's a bridge. They're coming through. The parasites writhed, the amplifier shuddering. Joran's vision blurred as psionic static clawed at his mind. He saw them then, the Zoryth, not extinct but sleeping, folded into the void between stars, hungry, patient, detonated. Saren said. He hesitated. You'll die. The feedback. Her hand found his bloody and sure. Then we die together. The charges exploded in a chain of white fire. The amplifier's scream was psychic, a lance through every synapse. Joran fell, his skull splitting, his vision reduced to fractured vignettes. Saren collapsing beside him, her crystalline skin cracking like porcelain. The temple crumbling, the hybrids dissolving into ash, and deeper, deeper, a rift tearing open above the monolith, the Zoryth's true form spilling through. A swarm of shifting limbs and eyes, a god of endings. Joran crawled to Saren, his fingers brushing her shattered cheek. Her mind flickered against his, faint but unyielding. Finish it. He dragged himself up, the plasma pistol hot in his grip. The rift pulsed, the Zoryth coalescing into a single maw. Joran aimed not at the creature but at the temple's heart, the psychic network's core, exposed by the blast. Forgive me. He fired. The core detonated in a silence that swallowed sound. Light consumed the temple, the rift, the Zoryth scream. Joran's body lifted, weightless, and for a moment, he floated in a sea of static. Saren's hand was still in his. Then gravity returned, brutal and final. He woke to rain. The temple was gone, reduced to a glass crater. His body was a map of burns and broken bone, but he breathed. Beside him, Saren stirred, her skin webbed with fractures, her obsidian eyes dimmed. Why? Her voice rasped raw. Why did you not kill the core? He turned his head, wincing, changed the target, used the rift's energy to fry their hive mind. A lie. The core was intact. The networks would survive. She understood. Her cracked fingers tightened on his. Fool. Yeah. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. But your people, they'll live. And yours. The unspoken question hung. He didn't know, didn't care. They were found by Vinthari scouts, their ship's engines howling through the acid rain. Joran's vision faded in and out. Saren's face above him, her mask gone, her grief naked, hands lifting him. The sting of Mednanites. When he woke fully, it was in a Vinthari medbay, the walls curved and organic. Saren stood at the viewport, her fractures sealed into silver scars. War, he croaked. She turned. The Accord's emblem flickered on a hollow screen behind her. A new treaty, hastily inked. A ceasefire. For now. He sat up, his body protesting. And the Zoryth, gone. The rift sealed. She hesitated. They say, you saved us. He laughed, though it hurt. Don't ruin my reputation. They stood on the medbay's observation deck. The stars sprawled below. Saren's scars caught the light, turning her into a mosaic of old pain and new resolve. Joran's reflection in the glass looked almost unfamiliar, lighter, somehow. What now? He asked. She unclasped her cast sigil, letting it clatter to the floor. I am adrift. He fished his disgraced badge from his pocket, tossing it beside her sigil. Join the club. A silence then. Not uncomfortable. Not anymore. Her hand found his, tentative. He didn't pull away. The starship hummed around them, carrying them toward the neutral zone, toward a future unscripted. Joran watched Saren's profile, her scars glowing faintly in the starlight. Redemption, he thought, wasn't in the grand gestures. It was in the quiet after, in the hand that stayed. She met his gaze, and for the first time, she smiled. It was enough.